Yeah.
All right, go whenever you're ready.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sorry we haven't been making content recently. I had to move, um, and I just got my recording equipment set up today. So I'm going to be making Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profiles will be coming out every other day, and hopefully in between we'll have enough content for videos like this to film the gap because I don't want to just keep releasing Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos every day. I just want to keep up the diversity in the videos, and I think we'll start from there.
What are we
I'm just
talking
kind of
about today, Spencer?
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about the Solo movie because obviously it didn't do so well in the box office. Like we can start there.
We
So
um
yeah, we
we
wanted to go back.
we had the idea to make this video because we were randomly watching it the other night, and like both of us had this thought. It's just like this movie is not bad, and anyone who kind of had the idea that it was bad, it like I'm confused as to like why like that was ever even part of the narrative in the first place. And so we kind of wanted to make this video to try and talk about like why I think this movie deserves a little more credit, why we feel it's a little underrated, and if you haven't seen it, like potentially convince you to actually see it after this video.
Yeah, so that was kind of the whole idea going into it. We wanted to say, well, like, was the Solo movie really as bad as it seemed, or at least the stigma around it? So we're gonna go into our notes here. We're not gonna go too deep into it. We just want to kind of give our opinions on the kind of things that we saw in the movie and go from there. So the first thing I saw was a different filming style, definitely from the traditional kind of Star Wars narrative. You can tell it's just a different um, way the way the story moved along and the way like scenes played out were just seemed different to me from Star Wars. Do you agree or disagree with them?
I think like I think ever since Disney took over Star Wars, there's been just a shift overall in kind of cinematic style. Like it's hard to describe like what you had with the prequels. Like it was kind of just a lot of set shots of characters in a certain frame, and like they're kind of very limited to that frame, and the camera shots aren't very dynamic at all, and it's just it's really just like it's not immersive. I would say you're watching. It very much feels like you're watching actors in an on a set. And what I appreciate about what the Disney movies, starting with Force Awakens and like even a lot in Solo, you get really up close and personal, and a lot of these shots are dynamic, and they establish certain like tones and moods, and you really get a feel for like the scale of whatever scene you exist like it is existing in. And what I liked about this movie is that it kind of starts with establishing how like small and insignificant Han is, and that shows a lot. Like it's hard to like explain it in words. You would need visual evidence, which is why you should watch the movie. It really establishes Han as like it really like helps you buy into the idea that Han is small and insignificant.
Right. Just a really interesting way, like because when you see like Rogue One, like you get a real uh what's that movie? The World War II movie? Saving Private Ryan. It's a real Saving Private Ryan type of movie.
Uh-huh.
And this movie, I don't I really don't even know like kind of a comparable thing, but it certainly didn't feel like the other Star Wars movies, even though yes, I do agree that episode 7 and 8 were even different than the originals, like 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think that may have been a weird thing for people to see, like just such a different way of looking at a story. And another thing about this movie, it's not a self-contained story. Like we, especially as we've seen within like episode 7 and 8, it's very much like about one central type of thing. Like
We're not
yeah,
used to Star Wars feeling like an actual movie, I think.
yeah,
When I watch
definitely.
Star Wars, I feel like it's a lot similar to Jesus. I can't talk today. It's a lot more
Uh,
similar to like how I would like view a play. It's like you have this set and like the focus is on the characters. You're not really supposed to really take in the environment, obviously, because like even during the prequels, most of that shit was on green screen. Was on green screen, so like it it wasn't really immersive anyway. But now it's like these environments matter, and I think That's a strength of the Disney sequels and this movie in particular. Is like you get a really good feel of like you're in a battlefield, like an actual battlefield in this movie. Like you never really saw that. You saw like wide, like every time you saw war depicted in the previous Star Wars movies, especially the prequels, it's like this wide sweeping, like you get an overall view of the battle. It's not like an up close and personal, visceral like experience where you get the one character's perspective on everything that's happening around you. It's more of just like Star Wars in the past has been more about how characters interact with each other and not how they like experience certain things. And this definitely gives you like you even then you still get a lot of that good character interaction in this movie too.
Yeah, and there's also a lot going on, like in terms of the story. Like, it's not just about like Han like developing like as a character, what it is, but they're referencing a lot of things within the universe that like have nothing to do with him. So like it's very much like you have to like understand the lore to really like get a full grasp of what's going on, because you got like Darth Maul and all these
Mm-hmm.
syndicates and the wars going on as well. So I did like that about the story, because at times episode 8 did feel like a really simple story of like one thing going on, which was one of the cool things about it. But again, I guess something unique about this film was that it was Han interacting with this bigger universe rather than like the universe being centered around him.
I thought that was something that was like overall indicative of like something that Disney has recognized too, because I agree with you 100%. Like it does feel at times like Star Wars is we know Star Wars to be this massive, expansive, and deep, dense universe, right? With all these different kinds of characters and things that are interacting and happening all at the same time. And all of the movies we had seen are essentially about like Luke and Anakin Scott, the Skywalker family, and it's all kind of like it makes them seem like they're the center of the universe when although they are like one of the most significant like the Skywalker saga is like the most significant story in the galaxy in this expansive Star Wars universe, it's not the only thing that's going on. And it's why I like that they like distinguished it as the Skywalker saga and try to differentiate it between like there's other stuff going on here, like we said, like with these crime syndicates, with even like the references to Galaxy's Edge, like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in this, like you get references to the Black Spire Outpost, you get references to a character called Doc Ondar, which is like which you can see in the land. There's other shit going on, and I really really like how like they approached it because they've done so much. Like, there's been so much world building, whether through like the Legends canon and what stuff has been brought over from that, and as well as just like the shows that we've had in Rebels and the Clone Wars that have established a much larger, like, and more expansive universe that is living and breathing. And it's the biggest thing is that like there's stuff happening outside of whatever's going on with the Skywalkers.
So yeah, I really like that part about the movie. And we'll go on to another point. Uh, so not everything in the movie was good. Obviously, we're not Disney fanboys. Hopefully,
I mean, I
it
am.
doesn't come off that way. I'm not. Uh, so I'm gonna say like Lando felt like someone playing Lando Calrissian rather than just being the character as he was.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely something that I noticed. But again, we talked about it. To their credit, I mean, you really don't see Lando for but a few minutes, in the Star Wars movies. So they do have a lot of creative liberties to go
Yeah,
with it. But again, that's the impression I got out of it.
and conversely, like when you look at Alden Ehrenreich and his portrayal of Han, like that it can be up for debate, but I personally believe he captures the essence of Han Solo. Han Solo is my favorite character in all of Star Wars, and I think that like as far as like it doesn't have to be like one to one mannerisms. I think if he captures the spirit and essence of the character, then it's faithful and it's worthy and it's like worthy of existing. And I think that that's what this movie does. I think this establishes it's a different interpretation of Han Solo because obviously he's at a different point in his life and he's experienced less, and you have to kind of fill him in with these kinds of experiences. But I think that the way this movie approached it, him being like bright-eyed, bushy, like bushy-tailed, and really optimistic about things, and kind of like seeing how the galaxy works and how like little of, not say how little of a difference he can make, but like realizing that he has to look out for himself over the course of this movie, combined with the wittiness and the snarkiness and the arrogance. I think it's a good combination, and I think what you're saying about Lando is correct too. In that we know so little about Lando, like contextually through the original trilogy. We only see him in 2 movies for about a combined 15 minutes of screen time. So when you see him, as a younger, when you see Donald Glover play a younger Lando, it doesn't feel the exact same because we have this experience of like Lando is more of a contained character, but you see Donald Glover play him and he's more of like a suave, kind of like a smooth talker, and that's fine. I think that's fine. I think it's reasonable to believe that Lando goes from this smooth talker and like a con man to being a more mature con man, like a more like we see a smarter Lando in the original trilogy is what I think we can chalk that up to.
Right. Yeah, and again, this movie isn't going to be perfect as well. They were trying to capture the essence of the characters as well, just making a movie, much like Rogue One did. Like they captured the essence of Star Wars, but again, it was its own story that kind of was different. Um, we'll move on. I was actually surprised because I don't read up on this stuff. Like you read up on you know a lot more about it than I do. I was surprised that L3 wasn't a popular character from the movie. I thought L3 was like a hilarious character, and
People hated L3,
I
hated
thought
it.
L3 was great. It was funny. Like I just enjoyed the way, just this like the running joke in the movie that she was like freeing robots and that she was kind of like sassy and like we sassy robots are like a staple in Star Wars movies,
Spence,
which is
people don't want to see real life concepts talked about in Star Wars. They don't want to see things like war. They don't want to see things like an ethical struggle between good and evil. They don't want to see those things. They don't want to see things like equality and civil rights be mentioned. None of that stuff exists in Star Wars, don't you see?
I guess I just thought I just it was like just a running like I mean yeah sure they were talking about
It's
like
on the
the
nose,
idea of
yes.
equality yeah but it was primarily used as a like a humorous part of the movie and I thought it was very humorous.
I think I have any kind of allusions to kind of real life issues that are more pertinent, real like right now, that are more in the public attention in the zeitgeist. Like people are gonna, especially when it's Star Wars, people are gonna get angry about it. And we saw that a lot with the Last Jedi, and we saw a lot of it carry over to L3 being wanting to be a droid liberator. Like it's a fucking joke. Like that's how you're supposed to interpret it. Like it's not supposed to be the moral statement that this movie is making. If there's any moral statements this movie makes, it's not that. You know.
Yeah,
So
and the
I
humor
thought a
came
lot of
across
people.
well. Like I didn't think it was dry at all. Like it was actually one of the better parts of the movie in terms of like how the humor rolled off.
And it's
Uh,
on the nose, and it's purposefully on the nose, and I think that's what you're supposed to get out of that, and not to say that like Disney is pushing their agenda that all these like they're pushing an agenda of like incorporating all these SJW characters into Star Wars. That's stupid. It's stupid to think that, and I think if you let that take away from how you experience the movie, I'm not gonna say you're stupid, but I'm not gonna say you're not stupid.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I can get where you're coming from. It's like, oh, I just want to watch the movie, but at the end, like also, like it was well done.
It's
Like,
fucking robots, man.
yeah, and the character had more than just like that whole thing. Like that was the main driving force. But then there are also these moments where she's interacting with the girl, and just like this genuine, funny conversation you have. It's like two girls talking, but you know one's a robot, and it's done well. So I liked it. Um, we'll go on to another thing. Another thing I didn't like this movie is I felt like characters died because they're not in later movies, and
Sure,
you
yeah.
can understand it in the Rogue One series because like they're going for the Saving Private Ryan narrative that like you do this thing, you accomplish this task at the cost of everyone's death. Like that's the whole theme of the movie. But I didn't feel like it needed to be for this. It's like sure, like yeah, not everyone's gonna survive in the movie. Like obviously, like it's not a fairy tale, you know. It's not something you read in a children's book. But at the same time, like sometimes I felt like okay, like couldn't you just gone away? Like it felt it didn't push the narrative story, and like people's death are supposed to push a narrative, like or like move on the plot line. And for some of them you can understand, but other ones you're like, okay, why? What's really the point of that? Like, I don't get it.
I think this is another like indication of the of what I was talking about earlier, where like Star Wars has this small big universe syndrome, where like they can like it's a lot easier for them to be like, oh, we can just go off like these characters. Some of these characters that died, like Rio and what's her face, Val, I think her name was,
Yeah.
Thandie Newton's character. Like they could have like gone, like you could have found a way for them to like go off and go in peace and be like, nah, man, I'm not getting involved with Crimson Dawn or whatever. I'm out. Like they could have, you had them done that, and instead they die, and they kind of die just to, they die solely to move the plot along. And like you said, I think it's because it's like, oh, if Rio and Beckett and Val are all still out there, like how does that affect Han? It's like I feel like there's enough there that you can work with to where them dying doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be like that, man. They died for nothing, man. Bring my boys back.
Yeah. So those are just the little notes that I saw during the movie. We can kind of give our conclusions now. I just wanted to say, like, okay, the reason this movie didn't do well was partly because of the annoying people, but mostly because it came out after Deadpool and it came out after Infinity War. So the average American household couldn't afford to see another movie in that month. It came out in the same month as those movies. Like will forget, like, and then once it's out for a while, like people just don't get around to seeing it. I mean, that's just the nature of movies and the typical household. Not us, because we go to the movie theaters a lot, but again, we don't have two kids. We don't have a wife. Like it's not as easy as it is for us as it is for other people or
I
the average person in the United
I
States.
think there's a lot more to that, that like a lot of people, like what you're saying, that a lot of people haven't really talked about. It's like it's fucking expensive to go to the movies, man.
It is, yeah,
Like
especially
especially
if you have
if you're a
kids.
family of four, you're looking at like a $70 to $100 day just to go to the movies. Like, and just like if you're coming on, and if you're like, shit's hard, money's hard to get, man. Like we, not all of us have money to just blow on taking the whole family to go see Avengers one, like a week or two after its release, and then go see Solo, like not even 3 or 4 weeks later. uh I do think the sentiments around the Last Jedi had a lot to play into how this movie was received, because especially because they ended up kind of putting all of the future Star Wars story movies on hold, especially the Obi Wan movie one. So yeah, it's. I think all there are a lot of factors that come in, especially the release schedule. People are gonna go see Deadpool because it was really like, a lot of people really like the first one. People are still seeing Infinity War like 3, 4 more times, and the Star Wars didn't really have great like public standing. They weren't really in the public's good graces. They're in my good graces. I love Star Wars, and I don't think I'll ever say a bad thing against Star Wars. And I did see this movie like twice, I think. So I just wish that the circumstances were a little better. I think in different circumstances, this movie does a lot better.
It's just done like a month later because actually after Infinity War, there were no movies that came out after that, if I remember correctly.
Like after
Not like
Solo,
an
after Deadpool, it was pretty
dead.
chill for the rest of that year.
Yeah, so like if they just would have waited maybe like a month or two, like it certainly would have been the hottest movie of the month. And of course, it wasn't going to be with Avengers coming out. So I think that was probably the biggest reason that the movie didn't do so well.
Quick,
Because
quick
it was
nitpick
a very
time.
enjoyable movie without a doubt.
Quick nitpick time for me as a huge Star Wars nerd. These are not valid criticisms. I fully recognize that they are nitpicks. Han Solo, the way he gets his last name is fucking stupid. I think it's stupid. I don't
We
like it.
talked about it. I think it's akin to Jews in the Holocaust. When Jews came from like concentration camps and they made their way to New York and stuff like that, like the officers like couldn't understand their names, so they just gave them random names. And I guess it goes along with the whole theme that uh the Empire's Nazis and stuff. So, but it is pretty lame. But yeah, that's it. That's the way I compared it to.
Are you calling me a racist right now?
Um, have you retweeted something that's about equality in the past 10 minutes?
I'll do it
So,
right now, dude, so I can get back to into the good graces. And my one thing was that like I thought like there's a lot of stuff that like I thought the L3 stuff was on the nose, and I thought it was funny because that it seems like that was done on purpose. We were like it's like a more of a nerdy thing. That's like it's not even like more of a nitpick. I think it's a funny observation that like we're this close, like we're in the last like scene of the movie, like last 10 minutes of the movie, and we're like, wow, it's like there are gonna be no lightsabers involved in this Star Wars film, and then Darth Maul shows up out of nowhere and lights up his lightsaber just for the sake of not having a Star Wars movie that didn't have a lightsaber in it. I think
Yeah,
that
that
was
was pretty
funny.
silly.
I thought that was funny.
It, yeah, it's silly. Um, so yeah, those were our thoughts on the Solo movie. I definitely do. I would recommend it. It's just it's a good if you it's on Netflix too, of course, so it's easily accessible. If it wasn't easily accessible, I'd probably be like go out and buy it. But the fact that
There's
like
no
most
reason
people
for
have
you
a
to not
Netflix,
watch this movie.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's on Netflix and it's a good watch to watch with like on a date or just with some buddies. Like it's a pretty like good movie to watch with anybody. You know, it's family even too. It's like a pretty family friendly movie, of course.
Go see Solo. It's really good.
Yeah, go check it out. It's definitely not as bad as the stigma around it, I guess, is the main point of this entire video.
And I think a lot of people have recognized that too. For to the credit of Star Wars fans, I know you and I shit on Star Wars fans a lot, but we are Star Wars fans, and a lot of them have been like, it's like I think a lot of them have the same mindset as we do. Is that it's unfortunate how this played out because I think this movie was better than a lot of people will be willing to give it credit for, or not even that. Like people just haven't seen it. I think if more people see it, then more people will like it.
I agree. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Again, just to end the video, we're gonna be having scheduled releases. I'm doing a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh deck profiles, like they'll be coming out every other day. Just fun, different ones. Again, I'm a really casual player, so I play fun decks. I don't play competitive decks, and I think there's something to that, and I think people do like that because I represent something that's maybe a little less popular than the main Yugi tuber landscape. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Take care of yourselves, y'all.
Nice. Yeah, bye.